Well, I'm looking forward to introducing you to our next speakers. And one of the reasons that Woody and I take the time to fully introduce our colleagues on stage is because we want you to know the amount of experience and education that the folks who are working with your students day in and day out have. Stetson is a very well-resourced institution with staff who are helping with the out-of-the-classroom learning and the day-to-day living. And residential life is that basic level on Maslow's hierarchy of needs. The living experience is really critical and important. So we have some fantastic folks who are here to help and talk today about this experience. So Larry Carell-Hughes is our Executive Director of Housing and Residential Life. He's starting his second year at Stetson. He started exactly a year ago during opening weekend and is absolutely fantastic. He came to us from Wake Forest University, where he oversaw occupancy management and neighborhood relations in residential life and housing there. He has extensive experience in strategic planning, assessment, technology, and enrollment projections. It's a complicated beast, and getting the students in the door with admission and the housing process is quite complicated. He's an alumnus of Texas A&M University. Howdy, right? Howdy? Are there any Texas parents out there who got that? Yep, okay. And he has a master's degree in Student Services Administration from Baylor University. And then he went on and got his doctorate in counseling and student personnel services from the University of Georgia. Then after he speaks, we will have our director of the Counseling Center, Rachel Boldman, right here. She is a double hatter as well. She has her Bachelor of Arts in Communication Studies and a minor in music, and her Master of Science in Clinical Mental Health Counseling from Stetson University. Prior to Stetson, she developed a significant amount of experience in working with folks who have ADHD, depression, anxiety, and borderline personality disorder, and she's a really beautiful person, so I'm excited for you to get to know her. And then after she is done, Jessica Curry, our Assistant Director of Residential Education and Community Programs, will be talking. And Jessica has her Bachelor of Science from William Patterson University, and her master's degree is from Centenary College. And her hometown is from she's from Lakewood, New Jersey. And I know we have some New Jersey folks, yep. We have quite a few folks from New Jersey. So with that, I will turn it over to Larry and enjoy their time with these three folks.
Thank you, Rena. Ooh. One of the first things I want to let you know with housing and residential life at Stetson University, we are people that work with your students because your students are people. So we're all people. Our team is myself. I'm the Executive Director of Housing and Residential Life, as Rena said. We have Juan Escobar is Residence Life Coordinator for Carson Hollis, Smith, Gordis, and Nemec Halls. Jess Curry, to the far right, on the stage sharing with me, is Assistant Director for Residential Education and Community Initiatives. She is also the interim director, interim residence life coordinator for all of our apartment areas. So she is carrying a double job right now and doing it phenomenally. In the middle, we have Dr. Regina Sargent. She is our assistant director for housing operations and administrative services. And so that's all the back-end assignments part of our work. We also have Cecil Chick. She has a master's degree from University of Central Florida, and she's been with us almost a year. She oversees our houses, so our fraternity and sorority houses, our new Catalyst houses, as well as Conrad Hall. And then finally we have Barbara Hawkins, and she is starting her 5th year as a residence life coordinator, so she brings a wealth of experience to that role. And she's overseeing University Hall, Shadowan Hall, and Emily Halls. And then we have Jeanette Cornier. She is a 20-year veteran in working with students here at Stetson University. She is our office manager, administrative assistant. She is Auntie Jeanette to so many students, and she is phenomenal. So these are the people that will be working with your students from housing and residential life. And then I am so privileged to work with Jess and Rachel Boldman and all of our colleagues across campus. So what are we about? We are about fostering inclusive engagement communities and engaging communities. We're about learning and living and values all coming together. We want students who live on campus to be provided the opportunity to learn, to grow and develop. And this is a mission that we are trying to live out in every day with your students. We want them to be able to significantly engage with their communities for the rest of their lives. So we want them to, the university, Stetson, their residential community is a microcosm, a learning laboratory to live in community for the rest of their lives. We have spent the last year really working to develop learning outcomes for the on-campus experience. So Stetson University, we have a 3-year residency requirement, which I'll talk about a little bit more later. But it is a fundamental part of our identity as a residential liberal arts university. And your students will leave their experience living on campus having learned and grown during their time here. And in order to make that learning happen, we are creating an environment where we're providing an avenue for students to develop themselves as leaders within the campus and the larger DeLand community. We are providing opportunities. So we are not, there's a difference in the residential learning experience than their classroom experience. So their classroom experience, they're going to have a grade at the end of the term. They're not going to have a grade for their residential experience. However, we are providing them with opportunities, countless opportunities to learn and grow and develop. And we're trying to provide them with an environment that is safe and secure. Safe is something that the students are intimately involved in. So providing a safe environment for our students, that doesn't mean they won't be uncomfortable and they won't be challenged. But we are providing an environment where we have staff and faculty members around them to help them learn and grow and navigate situations. We're going to try and provide clear information for you and your student, and we are going to partner with the rest of campus, faculty members and staff members, other departments, to maximize the residential experience.
We're going to talk, We're going to talk through with you a couple of issues that might come up while your student is away. I know that all of these issues and more are on your mind. So what happens if you get this text message tonight from your little baby bird who has flown the nest, and we have gently pushed that little baby bird out of the nest? What happens when you get this text message? You say, "Hi, honey. How's it going?" Because we can, do that on text message tone. Yes, we do that with exclamation points. And you get this message back: "IDK, everything is horrible. I hate it here." Your immediate reaction: getting in the car, coming to get you, bringing the dog. We are on our way, basically. Should you do that? I don't know. You can click through. So I want to talk to you a little bit about grief and loss. Grief and loss is something that everyone deals with throughout their life in many varied, very, very different ways. And we all experience it differently, and we all react differently to grief and loss. So it's important to remember that even you leaving your student here and allowing them to live on campus, that's a loss in your life, and it is totally okay to grieve that loss. It's going to be uncomfortable. We talk about that with our students a lot, the difference between uncomfortable, unsafe, those sorts of things. Like, what does it mean to be emotionally uncomfortable, and what does it mean to grow through that? Well, guess what? You all get to learn that too. Isn't that exciting? Grief and loss is inevitable in life, and so what we want to do in order to heal and in order to move on is to make meaning out of that loss. What I mean by making meaning out of the loss is finding the lessons, finding the good points, finding the ways that we can reconnect to our life. In many ways, the empty nest kind of thing feels a little weird, right? So for you all, thinking about what can I do to re-engage, you're calling her out. You're like, it's you, not me. What can I do to re-engage with my life? How can I make meaning out of my student being away from me? Maybe you want to pick up a new hobby. Maybe you want to do something while your student used to be at sports practice and you're running around here, there, and everywhere. Now you're at home. What do you do with your time? Netflix. But your students, talking about the student's perspective, the student and you are losing kind of part of their routine, right? The routine of getting up every day, going to high school, the sports practices and things like that. So it's also, when we talk about making meaning out of loss, it's about finding what is the new normal. All of that was normal up until now. So what is normal now? It's not bad, it's just different. So one of my very favorite books is a children's book, and it's called The Invisible String. And I think that this book is another great way to make meaning out of loss. If you want to have a few tears, it's there for you. But it talks about how when we're connected to others in any way, and we are all connected to each other in some way, that connection can never be broken. It just changes. So like I said with the new normal, it's just different. Same thing with your connection to your student. It's still there. There's still love there. There's still appreciation and admiration there. But it's just a little bit different. And yes, it's hard to adjust, but it can happen. And so what I would say to help ease the pain of that transition and of the new normal is to figure out, what are your expectations? If you go into this first semester with your student away expecting phone calls every day, texts every day, emails all the time, if you go in expecting that and then that doesn't happen, that's probably not going to feel very good to you. So I encourage you to have an honest conversation with your student about what your expectations are about maintaining that connection and about communication, specifically with texts and emails and things like that. When I see a lot of issues with parents and students, it's because of these expectations. So if you clarify that up front, it can help make this a lot more comfortable for you and your student.
So my job is to talk a little bit about sharing space. Because how many of you have had your own room? Okay. So how many of your children, your students, have their own room? That's a challenge, right? They're coming here and now all of a sudden we're telling them that they need to share a space. They have to share a space not only with a brother or a sister, but a stranger, somebody that they might not know. And for some of them, it's going to be some mixed emotions. What is this person like? What are they going to do? How are we going to work through this? And so for us, being able to look at this generation of students who have not necessarily had to share a room before, we have to work through and help them kind of work through these mixed emotions. The easiest way for me to talk about it, so I shared a space when I was younger with my brother and my sister, and then we got our own rooms a couple of years later. And I remember going away to college wishing that I had my own room again. And I said to my mom, I don't know this young lady. She's from southern New Jersey, so we were a little bit different in how we approach situations. I was an extrovert, and I wanted to talk all the time and wanted to see how our day was. And she was an introverted person, and she wanted to kind of relax and mellow out when she was in the room. So we had to figure out how to work with each other and how to navigate those things. But my emotions always kept getting in the way, because for me, I was like, I want to talk now. And she's like, no, I don't want to talk now. We had so many differences. So for them, I'm sure they're nervous, they're scared, they're kind of worrying, like, what should I do? How do I navigate a conversation about the fact that I want the lights off, or it's too cold in here? I want it to be a little bit warmer. How do I have that conversation? And so being able to work through those differences is kind of a life skill, wouldn't you think? Haven't you run through those moments where you're like, well, no, I would like this way, or I want to make sure the kitchen's dishes get cleaned every night? Everybody has their own set of expectations. And so that's a life skill that we want them to build. And we think this is their first time. And being able to do that is to build that life skill. So one of the things that we do is we have staff who support them. We have resident assistants who we've spent the last 2 weeks prior to your students coming to campus, training them on what it means to help set boundaries, to create a roommate agreement, which is what all of your students will do within the next week. How to have the conversation about whether or not you can touch my TV, or if it's okay for you to eat my Pop-Tarts, because that comes up very often. And I would say now is the time to talk about it, right? So being able to talk about it now is going to help set them up for success when it does get stressful, when classes get busy, when homework is hard. Because if you set expectations, at least you know they're there. And so getting them to develop this life skill is really important. So I have a couple of suggestions for us to be able to kind of help our students navigate through these. And these are some things that all of our RAs work through as well. Civility. So be a good person. Show up to the room and be a good person. A good person tells somebody when they're not feeling okay about whatever happened. So they're saying, hey, you know what, I wasn't okay with the fact that you ate my Pop-Tarts. I wasn't okay with that. Can we talk about that? Can we figure out how can we be a good person? And if both people are being good people, then we should be okay, right? Then the next one is hangout space. So the room is a great place to hang out, but outside the campus is a great place to explore as well. We provide common space. We provide campus space for them to also enjoy the green, enjoy the cub, and different places on campus for them to find connections, that the room should not always have to be their hangout space. And so encouraging them to say, well, sometimes you might need a little space and sometimes you might not. So being able to share that, I think, and helping them gauge whether or not they're spending too much time in the room or actually finding a hangout space outside of the room so that both people can have their quiet time, right, their quality time. The next thing is storage. So for me, I know I came to college with way too much stuff. I was only 45 minutes from home, and I might have brought my whole room. And I'm sure after you were moving in people yesterday, and you saw others moving in, that you saw way too much stuff come in too. And so being able to talk a little bit about storage, how are they sharing that space? Because one of the things about this text message that came in is that it's true, they have a smaller space than what they had at home. The room space that they had was not just their bedroom, but they had a closet or the attic to put things away. So they had a lot more space that they could use and navigate that they no longer have, because now they only have their room. So talking to them about storage, how are they sharing space? What are they using to store their belongings and things like that could help navigate the conversation if they have a challenge with storage. Establishing alone time, I talked a little bit about that. You know your student best. So you know if they need their peaceful time. So that means they should be talking to their roommate about needing that peaceful time. So that roommate agreement is super important to bring that up for when they need that. And clear expectations. Clear expectations is the biggest thing to set communication right from the beginning. And I'm going to talk a little bit about roommate challenges because I think that is something that we will all face. I've been doing this work for almost 10 years, and I can't tell you how much time I spend on just roommate challenges. Most of my day is spent with roommate challenges because of the fact that we're all people, right? And people have conflict. So conflict does happen. So what do we do with this conflict? You're probably going to hear it. Your child is going to come home, your student's going to come home and say, I am so frustrated at Jim. He cannot in any way, shape, or form respect the fact that I need to study. So what do we do to help them navigate that conflict? Your job is to be their coach, maybe even their best cheerleader. Help them get through it because you're going to be the first to hear it. Generally, I would say that I am not the first to hear it. You are. And so making sure that you are their best coach and cheerleader right now in this point in time when roommate challenges come across is really important. Because whether they're losing or winning a game, you are the one that they're going to come to because they have been. That's their normal habit, right? For the past 4 years in high school, they've been coming to you and saying, how do I navigate this? How do I navigate that? And so being able to help them support their situations or how to navigate the conversation is really essential. Whether it's a text message or a phone call, I encourage you to approach the situation with, how about you tell me all the whole story? Listening and hearing them out and seeing what happened from beginning to end. Because most of the time, they sometimes just want to vent. I know that happened to me. My mom, I called her. It was probably about 3 weeks in. I overheard my roommate talking about how she was upset with living with me. And I didn't know what to do because I wanted her to be happy, but I also wanted to be happy. And I called my mom and I just started going off. I started telling her everything that was going on, what I've been doing, what I haven't been doing, and really being honest, because I was very honest and open with my mom. And the first thing she did was start giving me advice. I didn't even finish my story. She just started giving me advice. But that's not what I actually wanted. I actually just wanted her to hear me out, and I needed just to say it. To say that I was struggling, to say that something was going on. And I remember her kind of saying, well, you can do this, or go see your RA, or do this, or do that. And at that moment, I didn't need that. What I needed was just for somebody to listen, because I didn't have that yet. And so being able to figure out what your student needs is really important when they call you. And they're like, I'm struggling, I need some support. Asking them, how do you want me to help you, is really key. Because sometimes they'll come to you and they do want you to help them find an answer, or they want you to answer it for them, but sometimes they just want that ear, like I wanted from my mom at that point in time. So helping them learn through that conflict is really, really essential, for sure. And then helping them navigate that frustration and anger, because there are some times where they won't know how to have the conversation, or are so frustrated because it's happened over and over again, that they are not sure what to do because they feel like they've done what they were supposed to. So we do have some tools in place, and I told you a little bit about the resident assistant. So Larry shared that I'm also an interim residential life coordinator, and I wanted to tell you a little bit about the residential life coordinator. So they're the next person in line after the RA. So if your student has went to the RA, they've actually said, let's talk and sit down, let's bring you two together and revisit that roommate agreement we made the first week. The next step would be them going to the residential life coordinator to say, I've tried everything that I could have possibly done, and it's not working, and I need help. I need to help figure out what to do next. How can I get support to navigate the situation? Because what we want them to do is figure out what is the best avenue for them, and that's what the RLC will do. The RLC will help them figure out if it's time for a room change, or if there's something that they can step in and provide some professional support, right? Some professional conversation to bring the two in and set some strict boundaries. But overall, our goal is to make sure that they are able to focus on their academic success and to live here well. And so being able to make sure that no matter what's happening, that these challenges aren't things that set them back. They're something that helps them move forward.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about the first big trip home. A lot of times this happens at winter break. Thanksgiving's all good because it's like 4 days and everyone's happy and there's turkey and all that kind of stuff. But coming back home for the winter break, that's like 4 weeks, right? That's a long time. That's just enough time to get back adjusted to home and then come back to school. So this is a text message between your student and their roommate, who now they like because they got through all the conflict, they trusted their resources, they grew through that challenge. And maybe you find this text message on their phone, that the family is driving them crazy. There's nothing to do in your hometown, lights out by 10, and then the roommate's kind of commiserating, saying, me too, 2 more weeks till we go home to Stetson, can't wait, which is all great, right? Because here we are talking about homesickness. We want them to get to this point where they love their roommate, they love their living space, they've made Stetson their own. Maybe you have found your new hobby and you are just really enjoying it. So it is an adjustment period for all involved, and it can cause a lot of problems. Remember that your student has had freedom and independence now for a few months at this point, at the point where they get to winter break. We're talking middle of December. So they have been able to do whatever they want, whenever they want. They have studied whenever they want. They have gotten back to their room and you didn't know about it. So think about all of that as you are setting your expectations for your students when they come home. Sometimes it's really simple things. I remember my mom actually reminded me about this when I was preparing this presentation. I was telling her about it, and she was like, do you remember when you first came home? So I had realized, I think, during my first semester that I was a little bit of an introvert. My roommate and I were very quiet. We'd known each other a very long time, and we were very quiet. And because of our class schedule in the School of Music, we ate right at 7 o'clock. And we went to the Commons, and we ate, and we did whatever it was that we had to do after that, and then we went home, we did our homework, and then we were in bed. So I get back to my house for winter break, and number one, my family is loud. My Italian family got together to welcome me home, and I was like, why are you people screaming? I was like, please, everybody, just keep it down a notch, because this is terrible. And also, my family eats at like 7:30, and 5 o'clock would hit, and I was like, I am starving. Like, when is this going to happen? Because I need to eat. So it took a lot of talking to my parents and my family members who I was kind of staying with, to see, okay, how can we strike a balance with this? Like, is Rachel gonna have to, be really hungry until 7:30 and then eat, or can we maybe compromise a little bit? And also, we had issues over kind of the curfew thing too. I didn't always go to bed at 10. I didn't. I was out late. I did whatever I wanted, and so my parents expecting me to come home at 10. It was like, oh my gosh, where is she? It's 10. She's usually home at 10. What are we going to do? Oh my gosh. And so this is before cell phones as well, so they couldn't reach me. So needless to say, for pretty much all of us, the first extended visit can be a little bit stressful. The routine is just completely different a lot of times. Remember, also, the overall schedule includes sleep. Okay, so like we said, the hours are a little wacky maybe that your student is keeping while they're at school. See if you can find a balance. See if you can find an acceptable compromise in that. See if you can encourage them to get back onto a healthy sleep schedule. I'm not saying every student gets into unhealthy sleep patterns, but we know from experience that a lot of our students do get into unhealthy sleep patterns. Again, expectations. Are you noticing a theme here? We've all talked about expectations. So set those expectations early and review them often with your student. Have conversations about this. There are compromises that can happen. Your student can still have independence when they go home to see their friends, to talk to their friends from high school, to do what they want, but then you also can allow them to do that. Maybe curfew can't be whenever they want. Maybe you don't want them being out late. Maybe you don't want them coming back at all hours of the night. But maybe there's a way that you all can live in harmony for 4 weeks or so until they come back to Stetson and you can get back into your routine. And if they do call Stetson home, I know that that's very painful. I had that discussion with my family the first time I said that. But take that as a good sign. I can say with 98.999% certainty that it's not personal, that it's just kind of how this all works. They're making this place their own. They're making their own way, and we do want them to find that.
So now it's time for I would say that this is probably spring semester, and your students starting to get a little bit busy. They've navigated a semester. They're starting to see that life is going to be a little hectic. So they get sick. And here at Stetson, they call it the Stetson plague. And I believe that our health centers actually adopted this as well, because this is what happens is that one person gets sick, and then another person gets sick, and then another person gets sick. And it's because they all live in the same kind of community. People are not hand sanitizing enough, and passing. But they're like, what do I do? How do I take care of myself? What medicine should I take? Did you take any medicine, right? And then they're basically asking you, I want my mom. It's time for me to come home because I don't know how to do this. But life gets busy for them, and I think that's actually when sickness actually kicks in the most, because that's when they get off their routine. That's when they actually miss a meal or forget to get a good night's sleep in order to take care of themselves. And so they increase their time, which means sometimes that self-care goes to the back end. So they might call less. I think that's another thing to know about when it gets busy, is that they actually might call less. And so setting expectations on what you want, how often you want to hear from your student, is important. So if you want to hear or have a text message from them once a day, you should talk about that now. You should say, hey, I think we should start making sure that we communicate at least once a day, because you're going to be here and I'm going to be home. And I'm going to be worried about you if I don't hear from you for 3 days. So setting up some expectations, because when they get busy, they're going to be very busy, and you want them to be busy, right? She's like, yes, I want them to be busy. You want them to get involved. You want them to be excelling in their academics. But when they get busy, sometimes they lose that routine, and that means they call less. So making sure that you say, hey, Joe, I want to at least get a hi text message from you every day or once a week. I know that's what my mom asked me. She said, can you at least tell me you're alive? Just send me a text message. Then I know you're alive. And so at least setting those expectations up in the beginning is really important. It's really important for you to make sure that they're also, you're promoting their self-care. So when you do get on the phone, asking them, hey, are you taking care of yourself? How are you doing? When I supervise staff, the first thing I ask of them is, what did you do for yourself this week? Because if they're not doing anything for themselves, that means they're not considering who they are and making sure that they're okay. So I think that that's also something that you should adopt as well, is what have you done for yourself this week? Have you gotten a good meal? Making sure that they're okay is really important. If you promote their self-care, then they will start thinking about it more regularly, and it becomes habitual for them. Communication expectations, I'm going to just revisit this over and over and over again, because I think that this is the key to making sure you feel comfortable about their time here. About making sure that when they get busy, that they are in a good place, that you know that they're safe and that they're secure, and that everything that's going on in their life is good. Because that's what's most important, right? You want to make sure that they're good here. And so setting up those expectations in advance is really, really important. And it might mean you teach them how to take care of themselves when they're sick, that they need to run down to CVS, which is right down the street, it's literally a walk away, and get some cold medicine. Or if they use our health services, and because they accept your health insurance, so check that out. If they use our health services and go and check out there. Kathy there is amazing. So making sure that they go see Kathy is really important. Or maybe it's checking in and saying, hey, have you gone to the beach? It's only 20 minutes away. Go to the beach. So that they are taking some time for themselves. I actually asked a few of my RAs, my senior RAs, for some advice. So I'm going to read a little bit to you about what they told me. I asked them to give me advice about what they loved from their parent their first year. What they wished they would have had, but also what they loved about it. So one of them said, when things got busy, all I asked was for my parents to just give me some space, but then to call me once in a while, to remind me that they love me. This is our star football player, Davian Belk, on the football team. That's what he said to me. I just want my parents to remind me they love me, but to still give me some space. Obviously, he's a busy guy, right? And then another one said that snail mail has not died yet. And I appreciated a message in the mail every once in a while. And she said that she loved having a care package once in a while. And this is actually from one of our senior RAs. She's an education major and is actually going to be teaching in Volusia County. And she said that it actually showed me that they cared and that they missed me once in a while. And that even though it wasn't a phone call, that it was something special that she enjoyed. So those are 2 words of advice from 2 RAs on our staff this year. But just like you, our staff truly cares about your student. We want to make sure that their experience here is the best. That what they experience is not only something that they can talk about years from now, as I do when I reminisce with my college friends, but it's also something that they've grown and learned while they've been here. I truly believe in the residential life experience, teaching them the skills they don't get in the classroom. That they can't learn how to communicate and connect with people in the same way, right? Because conflict happens, life happens. You learn to fall and be alone and have to figure out how to struggle through situations on your own, and sometimes with great support. And so we want you to know that our student staff is here for you, that we want them to teach your students how to have fun, but enjoy themselves, but also be successful.
So then, in the middle of the spring semester, you might get a text, I just got an email about room selection, what should I do? That response, send it to me? No, read it. Read it, because it'll tell you what to do. So a couple of things we want to leave you with today. We have a 3-year residency requirement here at Stetson, so students need to live on campus for at least 3 of their 4 years. We do have a couple of exemptions that we have in place for that. Our student housing is designed so that the vast majority of your students, incoming students, first-year students, live in Carson, Hollis, Smith, Gordis, and Nemec halls. And then we have a couple of halls that are first-year and upper class. We also have on-campus, university-owned and operated fraternity and sorority houses. So if your student decides to join a Greek social organization, that would be a housing option for them that is on campus and operated by Stetson University. We have RAs that live in those buildings with them. We also have lots of living learning options. We have wellness housing. We have women's leadership. We also have our new Community Catalyst House program. It's a program where students can create their own community and live in a small residential house where they work on a project throughout a year with a faculty member and other students, and they have a community service engagement commitment. So we have like intersections of faith, green living, or sustaining green living, futures in healthcare. Those are a few of the ones that were submitted and approved this year, and those will likely change every year. So there will be lots of different options on campus for your students as they progress through here at Stetson. We also have apartment communities. We have 5 different buildings, and so those are on the perimeter of campus. Campus has expanded northward for some of those new apartment complexes. So as they live on campus for the 3 or 4 years that they are here, we care about them deeply, and we will be working with them closely. If they ever have anything that they need, they can contact their RA, their residence life coordinator, or our office in general. So I want to thank Jessica Curry and Rachel Boldman for sharing their thoughts and wisdom with us, and then we will proceed to the next session.
So we've had a couple of questions that have come across, and so I wanted to make it clear to all of you now. So we provide Wi-Fi in the residence halls, but your student also has an Ethernet connection, so if they buy an Ethernet cord, they can hardwire into the wall. If that is not working, we work with a company called Charter Spectrum. If they see their RA, they'll give them a 1-800 number that they call that directly just works with our Stetson students, and they'll come out same day or next day to be able to handle the problem to make sure that that's fixed, okay? So Wi-Fi is connected, it's Stetson ResNet, that's easy connection, but if they want to hardwire their computer into their room, there should be a connection, all they need is the cord, all right? Yeah. So we use postal service on campus, so any box that is sent that doesn't fit in the mail, any box that is sent to your student will be picked up. They'll send them an email to say that it's ready to be picked up. All of our care packages are delivered right through the postal service here on campus, okay? And so all of that will get delivered there, and she'll get an email to her account that says that it's arrived. Yeah, it'll go right to her postal box. If she hasn't got her number, send her over to By the Bookstore. That's where the post office is, okay? I think we're gonna take some questions later, okay?
Thanks, guys. Thank you very much.